Welcome back guys. LSFG just received a major update in the form of version 3.1. It comes with the following improvements. LSFG is a universal frame generator that works on any GPU, whether it's from Intel, AMD or Nvidia, it does not matter. It's included with a paid application called Lossless Scaling that sells on Steam Store for around $7. In this video I'll be trying out LSFG in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 GTA 5 Enhanced Edition, God of War 2018 Steam version of the game, Genshin Impact version 5.6 Epic Games version, and Doom the Dark Ages PC Game Pass version. Would like to thank keymailer and Xbox for providing me with a free monthly subscription of PC Game Pass. This subscription gives us access to hundreds of games. We can play these games for as long as we want until our subscription expires. Games from first party Microsoft Studio and even third party studios are available on Game Pass. In India, Microsoft even supports UPI mode of payment. Back to the task at hand, I'll quickly go through LSFG's update log. This update introduces significant architectural improvements with a focus on image quality and performance gains, quality improvements, enhance overall image quality within a specific timestamp range with the most noticeable impact in adaptive mode and high multiplier fixed mode, improved quality at lower flow scales. Flow scale setting allows LSFG to process the input frames at a reduced resolution and then produce the output at the target resolution, useful mostly at higher resolutions. For example, let's say your game is running at 1440p resolution, just set the flow scale value to 75%. It will allow LSFG to process the input frames at full HD resolution and then produce the output at 1440p resolution. On Rog Ally, I did not observe any significant improvement in performance with flow scale value set to 50% in games running at 900p and full HD resolutions. It ended up degrading the image quality. So on Rog Ally, instead of using the flow scale setting, just use the performance mode. Reduce ghosting of moving objects, reduce object flickering, improved border handling, refined UI detection. A new performance mode has been introduced. This mode provides up to 2 times GPU load reduction depending on hardware and settings, with a slight reduction in image quality. In some cases, this mode can improve image quality by allowing the game to achieve a higher base frame rate. We'll see. I'll kick things off with God of War 2018. Before that, I'll show you LSFG settings, launch Lossless Scaling app. Frame generation section, type set to LSFG 3.1, mode fixed, multiply 2, it will try to double the FPS, flow scale value maxed out, performance mode disabled, not using any of Lossless Scaling's upscaling algorithm. Sync mode default maximum latency set to 1, show FPS setting on, capture API DXGI queue target value set to 1, clip cursor setting on. Settings, hotkey for enabling LSFG control alt ns, start as admin setting on. Just minimize the app. Adrenaline settings for God of War, presync enable, anti-lag setting enable, vsync off. I have set the UMA buffer size to 6 GB. My Ally is running on BIOS version 3.1. I have installed Ally's latest official GPU driver that added support for Doom the Dark Ages. Using a 27 watts manual profile, all 3 power values set at 27 watts, 900p resolution, CPU boost disabled. Connected my 8-bit to Ultimate 2C controller to Ally via 2.4 GHz wireless mode. We'll be using a custom afterburner overlay to show you the performance metrics. Launch the game. Display settings, display mode set to borderless, very important for using LSFG. VSync off, motion blur and frame gain disabled. FSR2 upscaler enable using its quality preset. Using the original graphics preset, jump into the game. We are in, there's Kratos and the Pearl Serpent in the background. My current location, shows of 9. Performance in this area is heavily limited by the single core CPU performance. FPS is within a range of 36 to 40. Yeah, check out the GPU load, 80%. So we have some GPU resources available. These GPU resources will be used by LSFG for its proper functioning. Now I'll enable LSFG. Press its hotkey. Control alt ns. Yeah, it's working. Resume the game. FPS increased to around 70 with frame gen. Base resolution dropped to around 35. Before enabling LSFG, base resolution was close to 40. Yeah, I can observe that amount of smoothness. It's working very nicely. spinning the camera. Okay, not observing any artifacts around Kratos' character model. In the older versions of LSFG, Kratos' head used to flicker with LSFG enabled. This artifact has been considerably reduced by this update. This is amazing. Base resolution stays close to 35. FPS dropped by around 2 to 3 after enabling the 2x LSFG mode. Very good results. Slight increase in VRAM usage. GPU load increased to around 96%. Look at that smoothness. LSFG works very nicely in this game. Game's interface is not flickering, as you can see. Crosshair, it's also not flickering. Okay, now I'll test the performance mode. Open Lossless scaling app, enable performance setting, scale. Load the same sequence. Your base FPS is close to 35, was getting the same performance without the performance mode. FPS with frame generation close to 75. I'll just spin the camera around, observe Kratos' character model. Yeah, it's exhibiting noticeable ghosting. So not impressed with the image quality produced by the performance mode. Yeah, the crosshair is also flickering. See, it's a bit small. It's flickering. Better to just use the standard mode. It's up to you. I'll just test the flow scale setting now. Open Lossless scaling app, disable performance mode, set the flow scale value to 50. Unscale, scale. Again load the same sequence, getting roughly the same base FPS. 35. FPS with frame generation 76, like 1 to 2 FPS higher than the fixed mode 2x multiplier. Spinning the camera around, Kratos' head is flickering. See, this used to happen in the older versions of LSFG. So again, I won't recommend using flow scale setting. Now I'll test the adaptive frame generation. Unscale, max out flow scale mode, and just set it to adaptive. Rog Ally's display supports up to 120 Hz refresh rate. I have set the target value at 120. Scale. Resume the game from the same spot. Your base FPS dropped to around 29. FPS with frame generation 120. Look at this. Game is running very smoothly, but look at the graphical artifacts produced around Kratos' character model. Even his head is flickering. Older versions of LSFG used to produce even more graphical artifacts in this mode. There is a minor improvement in terms of image quality with this new build. Yeah, latency is noticeable. It's expected as the base FPS is on the lower side. When using any frame generation technique, you should target a minimum of 40 to 45 as the base FPS when you are playing the game using a gamepad. So I'm not going to blame LSFG for this. Limitation is with my device's hardware, APU. Now I'll test the next game. Set mode to fixed, multiplier to flow scale, maxed out, performance mode disabled. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, adrenaline settings for it, FreeSync on, VSync off, anti-lag setting on. Launch the game. In-game settings, 720p resolution, VSync off, FSR 3.1 upscaler enable using its quality preset, motion blur depth of field disabled, post processing quality set to low, rest of the settings set to medium. That's it. I am in the town of Traskowitz. This time I am targeting 60 as the base FPS. See, we are getting close to 65 FPS. Game is running very smoothly even without LSFG. Very nicely optimized game. I'm observing some texture shimmering around the fences. It's due to FSR 3.1 upscaler. Shimmering effect is produced even on the rooftops. Okay, I'll just enable LSFG now. We'll apply a 60 FPS cap using RTSS. LS display supports up to 120Hz refresh rate. Press LSFG hotkey combo, Control Alt and S. Yeah, it's working. Base FPS dropped to around 53. FPS with frame generation, it's close to 107. That's my dog mud. Wow, the game is running so smoothly. This is amazing. Just observe the crosshair. It's not flickering, see? But it will flicker when I switch to the performance mode. That's why I'm highlighting it right now. GPU load increased to around 94%. LSFG comes with a minor hit on the GPU performance, just like any other frame generation technique. This is why base FPS dropped to around 50. Okay, now I'll test the performance mode. Excellent results with the fixed mode, 2x multiplier. Open the app, unscale, enable performance mode from here, scale, go back to the game. It's the same spot. Yeah, base FPS increased to around 57, gained around 4 to 5 FPS. Smoothing effect is working very nicely, but just observe the crosshair now. It's exhibiting some ghosting, see? This ghosting effect was not present when I had the performance mode disabled, and I'm observing some garbled textures around the bottom edge of the display. This one is very difficult to spot on a small display. Game's interface is not flickering though, that's good to see. My bad, opened the map by mistake. 50 FPS, again not a big improvement in terms of performance with performance mode enabled. Quickly test the flow scale mode. Disable performance setting, set the flow scale value to 50, scale, resume the game. Yeah, just look at the aggressive ghosting produced around the crosshair. This is with flow scale value set to 50%. Base FPS value is close to 53 to 56 FPS. Slightly better performance compared to the fixed mode, 2x multiplier. Gained around 3 to 4 FPS with aggressive flickering around the crosshair. Game's interface is not flickering. Okay, so now I'll test the adaptive frame generation mode. No issues with the latency in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as the base FPS is on the higher side. Unscale, flow scale value maxed out, mode set to adaptive, target 120, scale, resume the game. Yeah, base FPS dropped to around 45. This mode comes with a big hit on the performance. Game's crosshair is exhibiting some flickering, and you can observe some garbled textures around the game's HUD element at the bottom side. There's a strip of garbled texture around the bottom edge as well. But game is definitely playable. Latency is not a problem. Base FPS is close to 45. This is manageable. It's up to you. I'll also test the 3x frame generation mode. Apply a 40 FPS cap using RTSS. Unscale, set mode to fix, multiply to 3x, resume the game. Base FPS locked at 40, FPS with frame generation 120, observing some flickering around the crosshair, and garbled textures are produced around the game's HUD elements at the top and at the bottom sides, see? So I observed the best image quality with the fixed mode. Multiplier set to 2. Now I'll test the next game. Set the mode to fix, multiplier to 2. Performance mode disabled, flow scale maxed out. Remove the 40 FPS cap. Now I'll be running GTA 5 Enhanced. FreeSync enable, VSync disable, anti-lag setting enable. Graphics settings. Screen type set to windowed borderless, 900p resolution, no FPS cap applied, VSync disable. Ray tracing off, upscaler set to FSR 3 using its quality preset, everything set to high. Long shadows disabled. Post effects set to normal. Population density and variety maxed out. Distance scaling and extended distance scaling set to nil. High detail streaming while flying on. That's it. I'll jump into the story mode. You can use LSFG even with GT online, no risk of getting banned. Here we are standing right outside Franklin's house. Performance in this game is limited by the single core CPU performance. You can see GPU load is close to 75%. We have some GPU headroom, be useful for the proper functioning of LSFG. In this game, very ugly ghosting is produced around a vehicle's bumper when we are driving the vehicle at high speed. Just observe the car's bumper. Yeah, there's the ghosting that I was talking about. See, so do not attribute this ghosting to LSFG. Apply a 60 FPS cap using RTSS as the base FPS is exceeding 60. Resume the game. Your FPS is capped at 60. With frame generation it's 120. Wow, the game is running very smoothly. Not observing any significant artifacts around Franklin's character model. In the older versions of LSFG, Franklin's head used to flicker with frame generation enabled, but that was GT5 Legacy. My bad, this is Enhanced Edition. Game's interface is not flickering. Check out the real world latency. Nothing extreme as the base FPS is on the higher side. GPU load increased to around 90%. RAM usage is around 5.3 GB. So very good results produced in GTA 5. And look at that ugly ghosting around the vehicle's bumper. It's not due to LSFG. Okay, now I'll test the performance mode. Open LSFG. Open Lossless Scaling app. Enable performance setting. Scale. Back to the game. Base FPS was already locked at 60, so we're not going to observe any change here. But just look at the GPU load. It dropped down to around 78%, 75%. It was, beg your pardon, it was close to 90% without the performance mode. Not observing any artifacts around Franklin's character model. So good results produced in this game with performance mode enabled. Helped in dropping the GPU load. Interface is also not flickering. Very smooth performance. I'll test the flow scale mode now. Unscale. Disable performance setting. Set flow scale value to 50. Let's see what happens. Scale. Resume the game. Here now I am observing some graphical artifacts around Franklin's character model when I spin the camera around. Flow scale setting affects the amount of information available to LSFG for motion estimation. Would not recommend it. Better to just use the performance mode. GPU load is on the lower side, 73%. So it's doing its thing. I'll also test the 3 times multiplier mode. Cap the FPS at 40 using RTSS. Open the app. Max out flow scale value. Set the multiplier to 3. Scale. Resume the game. Yeah, FPS is capped at 40. I am observing some flickering around Franklin's head. See, garbled textures are also present around this character model when I spin the camera around. FPS with frame generation is locked at 120. Game is running very smoothly. So even in this game, fixed mode worked the best with multiplier value set to 2. Check out the GPU load. It's close to 69%. I observed a higher GPU load with the other modes. Lower GPU load is due to the lower base FPS value 40. Now I'll test the next game. I'll keep it short for Genshin Impact and Doom the Dark Ages. Set the mode to fix, multiplier to 2, flow scale maxed out, performance mode disabled. It's the Epic Games version of the game. FreeSync, anti-lag settings enabled, VSync disabled. Launch the game. Remove the 40 FPS cap. My current location, Mondstadt. Show you the game settings. Resolution set to 900p windowed. I have set everything to high. FPS 60, VSync off, render resolution 1.0, anti-aliasing FSR 2, motion blur and bloom disabled, rest of the effects enabled, Setopic filtering 16 times. Yeah, there's a character. I'll just run around Mondstadt. Lot of NPCs here, good for testing the game. Keep an eye on the FPS counter, it's locked at 60. GPU load is around 80%, so we have a lot of free GPU resources. FPS should increase to around 100 with LSFG on. Image quality is looking so clean. Just enable it. Press its hotkey combo, Control Alt and S. Resume the game. Yeah, base FPS dropped to around 51. GPU load increased to around 95%. FPS with frame generation 105. Can observe that amount of smoothness. LSFG is working very nicely in this game. The interface is not flickering. Latency is not a problem as the base FPS is on the higher side. So good. Sprinting around. I'll just show you some combat. Teleport to another area. No ghosting is produced around the character model. Teleport to Windrise. Just wanted to use my glider. Yeah, no flickering is produced around the character model. Okay, I'm just looking for a campsite. I think that's a campsite. You can see some NPCs in the background. 120 FPS with frame generation. Amazing performance. Made it. Spam my attacks. 110 FPS. It's very impressive performance in Genshin Impact. LSFG works very nicely. Now I'll test Doom. Before testing Doom, I'll just test the performance mode. Enable, scale. Back to the game. Your base FPS is within a range of 55 to 60, closer to 60, and I'm not observing any artifacts around a character model. Interface is also not flickering. Good results produced by performance mode in this game. GPU load is close to 90%. Engaging combat. Can use this mode in Genshin, completely up to you. Gained around 5 to 6 FPS. Change my character. Okay, now I'll test Doom. Adrenaline settings for it. FreeSync on, VSync off, anti-lag setting on. I'll just set the UMA buffer size to 7 GB. GPU settings. Change the setting to 7 GB. Restart. Mode set to fixed. Multiplier to flow scale maxed out. Performance mode disabled. This game supports FSR 3.1 frame generation, but it's completely broken. The game received a new update a few days ago, but it did not address the broken FSR frame generation issue. I'll just highlight it. In-game settings, display mode set to borderless window. 720p resolution, refresh rate 120, VSync off, present from compute setting on. Chromatic aberration, depth of field disabled, film gain set to nil, upscale FSR using its quality preset, frame generation disabled for the time being, motion blur off, texture pools are set to 2048, everything set to low. Jump into the game. It's the 6th chapter. I'll be fighting against hordes of demons in a big open area. Yeah, here FPS is close to 35C. Check out the animation quality here. It's looking a bit jarring as one would expect. We are outside LSVRR range, that is 48 to 120. Now I'll enable FSR frame generation. From the game setting, just set FSR frame generation to on, apply. Make sure RTSS is not running in the background, otherwise the game will crash. Oh my god, look at the animation quality, it's looking so jarring. FPS is close to 60, which is not true. You can see that. So in-game FSR frame generation is still not working properly even after the latest update. Disable FSR frame generation. Disable Adrenaline's overlay, does not work properly with LSFG. I'll enable Afterburner. Resume the game. Now look at the added amount of smoothness. FPS increased to around 66. The crosshair is not flickering. I'll be honest, latency is manageable. Would have been better if the base FPS was on the higher side. Again, it's a hardware limitation. It's the first Doom title which is fully ray traced. That's why it's very heavy on the GPU. I'll engage in combat, check out the FPS stability. Base FPS is staying close to 30. FPS with frame generation close to 60. I really hope the developers will fix the broken in-game FSR frame generation soon. I'll test the other mode. Unscale. Enable performance. Scale. Low at the same point. Base FPS is close to 33. Not a big improvement in performance. And just observe the crosshair. It's flickering aggressively. See. I'm also observing some artifacts around my shield. Oh my god, what was that? Not impressed with the image quality again. After enabling the performance mode, I'll engage in combat now. FPS without performance mode was close to 30. Again, roughly the same performance. So it's up to you. I'll quickly test the flow scale setting. Disable performance mode, set the flow scale value to 50%. Scale. Load the game from the same spot. Base FPS is close to 33. You are getting roughly the same performance using the performance mode. And fix multiplier mode. Value set at 2 times. Observing some ghosting around the crosshair C. Engage in combat. FPS is close to 30. Game's interface is not flickering. That's good to see. No significant improvement in performance. Time to conclude the video. This new update is lighter on the GPU, reduces the in-game graphical artifacts produced compared to the older versions of LSFG. On Rog Ally, I observed the best image quality with frame generation mode set to fixed, multiplier value set to 2 times compared to multiplier value set to 3 times. Performance mode enabled, flow scale setting enabled and value set at 50%. Not impressed with the performance mode, it barely improved the performance but degraded the image quality significantly, caused some ghosting around the character model, flickering around the crosshair. Observe the same problems with flow scale setting enabled, value set at 50%. Better to just use the fixed frame generation mode with multiplier value set at 2 times. The results may be different on another PC with a more powerful GPU. Adaptive frame generation mode works very nicely, but it still produces some noticeable graphical artifacts around the character model. Depends on the base FPS as well. That's it with the video guys. I hope you find it useful. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.